Well, good morning. Welcome to Talk of the Town Live. I'm Mayor Kevin Cole, and I have with me our Assistant City Manager, Victor Brownlees. And I want to start off today with a little bit of an introduction of Victor. Victor, you've been with the city not quite a year, I think December, January?
Last October.
October, okay, so we are almost at a year. Couldn't remember the exact date you came on board, so I'd like for you to introduce yourself to the folks here in Pearland, and how did a guy from the UK end up in Pearland, Texas?
There you are. Okay. So, thank you, Mayor. My name is Victor Brownlees. As the Mayor said, I'm originally from across the water from Northern Ireland, which is still part of the United Kingdom. So I moved to the United States in 2017. How did I get here? So I married a girl from Lubbock, Texas. That's how I got here. I'm delighted to be here. Prior to the move to the United States, I had been involved in city management back in the UK, and it was really in my blood. My father was a physician, my mother was a nurse, my wife's a nurse. Public service is in the blood. Our son now lives in Conroe here in Texas and is a firefighter. It's hard to get away from it, but as I say, when it's in your blood and you have a dedication to public service, and I kind of fell back into it again, and thankfully, very gratefully, I ended up in Pearland, Texas.
Yeah, well, very good, and we're glad to have Victor on board. As many of you know, we Trent Epperson became our new city manager a little over a year ago. I think in May was his first year anniversary of that position, and of course, then started the search for a new assistant city manager, and Victor's on board. And I will tell you, Victor's great to work with. He and his wife moved from Baytown into Pearland just shortly after getting the job here, and so we welcome them not only to the city and the city family, but also to our greater city as a citizen and resident right here in Pearland. So, but a great opportunity to introduce Victor. And he's going to be along with me this morning, and we're going to discuss the issues that are in front of us. But before we get to questions and concerns that have been brought up here on the broadcast today, want to introduce some things to you guys to show you a little bit about what's going on with street repair and maintenance. It's a big concern in our city that some of our streets, more specifically our asphalt streets, we do have some older neighborhoods with concrete streets that we need to address, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I wanted to share with you a very robust plan that's already in place, already moving. In fact, we've awarded some bids, and you're going to see that over the months to come, but then also the years to come as we really address some of the maintenance of our streets. In fact, we awarded, I think it was about 2.5 weeks ago, almost a $3 million contract to address some of our roadways. In fact, we have a dashboard for all of our streets in town and the condition of our streets, and so we're aware of if it's in good repair or medium repair or really needs to be addressed. We're aware of that through this. So Joe, if you would, put that dashboard up real quick, and we're going to show you. You can actually go to this dashboard and watch this. This is part of our website, and so what you see here highlighted, and there's many things that you can go and look at, but you see on the far right hand side the condition rating anywhere from excellent to very poor. And so on here we've got this filtered. This is where all of the work is going to be done over the coming about 5 years. Okay, so specifically let's look at those that are going to be done in the next 3 months. Joe, right there. Yeah, perfect. So we issued a contract with a PaveCon, like I said, for almost $3 million about 2.5 weeks ago. So they have actually already mobilized. If you're over on Max Road, up and down close to McCard, you'll see that activity is already underway right in there, and you can see that's red. Some of the very poor conditions, as you can imagine. So if you live in that area and you drive that area, you certainly know that. But that's already underway. But everything that is highlighted on this graphic is going to be addressed over the next 3 to 4 months, weather depending, obviously. on how we get to them. So it's quite a bit of roadway. I can't remember the number of miles, but something in my head reminds me somewhere between 6 and 8 miles
That's
of
right.
roadway.
It's about 8 miles, Mayor. Yeah.
And it's quite a bit. Another one that's being addressed with this contract is McLean, a large section of McLean. You can see it there on the map.
I was going to say, Mayor, as a local resident, I'm very grateful to the city for that.
Yeah, you live off of McLean, and it's very good to see that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we hear and see and know the concerns and the complaints that we receive, and so this is being brought to make this happen. If you'll recall, in 2023, we went to the voters. And the voters approved both sidewalks and streets, some sidewalk repair and gaps, and then also some streets, specifically Hughes Road, to be widened and expanded over north of the creek off of Pearland Parkway. But we were fortunate enough to have our Economic Development Corporation to put about $500,000 into that plan. And then we were awarded a grant through Harris County. A large portion of that roadway is in Harris County. We've been awarded a grant by Harris County to partner on that road of some $4.8 million. And so that freed up some dollars in that bond program to put into major reconstruction and major, what do they call it, capital repairs, you know, on some of our major streets. So it really unlocked some capital. We just needed to make sure that we had the folks to manage that program and get it going. But you'll see that as we move forward. Joe, go back to that real quick, and we have a partnership with the county, Brazoria County. It's been a long-standing partnership, probably over 30 years. I've been involved quite a while, and it's been in place for quite a while. And we've got, go back to the filter by road rehab plan there. Click that one off, click the next one off, and then go to the next one. Where Public Works, nope, right there. Public Works program the next 3 to 6 months.
The third one.
Third one, yeah. There you go. And click on the filter by funding source real quick. Brazoria County.
Right.
There you go. Whoop. What happened to it? There we go. Okay. So we have a partnership with them, and just this is kind of our normal annual repair budget goes into this program, and Brazoria County provides all of the labor and the actual construction, and we provide the materials. So it's a real good partnership. It is your road and bridge monies that you pay when you go and renew your license and all those kind of things every year. You pay that on your vehicles and in your property taxes, and it is part of your county taxes coming back into the city. We are a part of the county, so it's coming back into the city to do that. I really want to note on this map, veterans. Veterans Drive is one that we get a lot of complaints on, and you can see that it is highlighted here, and that is going to be a roadway that's part of that program to be addressed sometime in the next 6 months-ish. Again, these things take a little bit of time to get bid out and done with the county, and agreements, you know, into place and get started. So, but you can see a lot of different roadways that we get a lot of different complaints on will be addressed, you know, through this. So then go, Joe, while we're talking about this, go to capital improvement. Right there. Click off the county, I think. See if that, yeah. Yeah. Okay, there you go. So if you'll recall, for those folks that are out there, if you'll recall, in May of 2023, we went to the voters with several capital improvements, from streets and sidewalks to firehouse and drainage, specifically drainage, okay? Each one of those drainage projects, localized drainage projects, had road repair attached to it, because we're going to come in and obviously probably damage some roadways as a part of the drainage, but on the back end of that, we will upgrade some of these roads. And some of the roads that we're talking about are internal to subdivisions. Others, like Fight Road is a long stretch. It's in need of some improvement today. Harkey is another one that is in need of improvements today. But let's talk about Harkey. So Harkey, That actually is going to be upgraded in about 2 years.
Right.
To actually, we're going to widen it to 4 lanes, concrete curb and gutter. So instead of an asphalt road, we're actually going to take it all the way up, and it will take it all the way down to Mary's Creek. So each one of these projects have this road repair to it. So when you put all of that together, it's a pretty robust plan. I haven't put the actual dollar amount to it, Victor. It's probably something we need to look at, because you'd have to pull them out of the capital improvements plan.
You could do that
Specifically, but we need to put an actual dollar amount. But it's probably approaching $40 to $60 million. Our Economic Development Corporation mentioned that. There's several projects up and down the 35 corridor that are tied to business interest, that they're going to rebuild some of those roadways, and they're spending 20% of their annual budget in cash on projects that relieve our need for doing that on the property tax side. And so talk a little bit about how that helps us on the property tax side.
Right, yeah, and I was just going to say that, Mayor, it's why we need a body like the EDC, because it's leveraging the sales tax dollars that otherwise we wouldn't get for the city, and takes the burden off the property taxpayer. So I think it's wise that they're making that investment. I know we've got ongoing discussion with them about can they do a little bit more, and they're doing more going into next year.
Right.
And in years to come, I think we'll see even more funding coming from the EDC, which is sales tax dollars. And remember, sales tax, about 60% of that is paid by people outside of the city of Pearland.
Right.
So we're using other people's money who come here and they drive on our roads. So why shouldn't we use that to repair our roads?
That's right. And specifically, their 5-year plan is about $22.5 million. And again, that's all back into some roadways that really need to be addressed. And so most of this takes time. Those projects that EDC is doing, every single one of those is going from an asphalt street to a concrete curb and gutter, better drainage, better streets, and longer term streets.
Right.
And I think that's part of what we want to do is in this investment in these streets, we want to make sure that it's good investments for a longer period of time rather than just slapping some asphalt down and moving on. So, but I'll say this, just remember, some of these roadways, you're still going to see pothole repair.
Sure.
Because it doesn't make sense for us to come in and do a complete overlay if in 2 years from now we're going to be tearing it out.
Right.
We don't want to use good tax money and then tear it up and then with good tax money.
Right.
Instead, we will do those pothole repairs and then we will come in and completely repair or replace that street. So very robust plan. I'm looking forward to, hopefully our condition index actually increasing when we do it again in 4 or 5 years rather than going down.
Sure.
And I think we're on the right path to where we're going. I can't thank our council and our staff enough for recognizing and seeing the need for this and really digging in and coming up with a very good, robust plan to address it. And so be patient as we roll those out, and we'll look forward to more in the days, years to come as we get to them. So with that, I also want to talk about, Victor, let's talk a little bit about the 2023 bond program. I mentioned the streets and the sidewalks. So Monday night, a couple nights ago, we awarded a contract with a contractor to address sidewalks, gaps in our sidewalk, and sidewalk repair. So talk a little bit about that program.
So, as the Mayor said, Monday night the Council took a decision to invest further into the gaps in the sidewalks, and we recognise that there's been a pattern of development over 30 plus years. People say, why are there no gaps? Well, 30 years ago people didn't think the way they think now. We need to fill in those gaps. And again, to the Mayor's point, we need to, over time, invest the money wisely so that we're not going back tearing things up. We're actually fixing everything for the longer term. So I'm very enthused by that. The other thing, Mayor, you might want to mention, again, the City Council, when it set its budget this year, not only put capital funding into streets and sidewalks, it actually is creating a new crew who will be focused solely on maintenance of our streets and our sidewalks, and I think that's very exciting for the future. As a resident now of Pearland, I'll tell you this, we are, dare I say it, streets ahead, Mayor, of a lot of other communities who wish they were in the same position.
Right.
I think we can be even better.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I want to piggyback on what Victor just said. So 30 years ago, we didn't even have a sidewalk program or required sidewalks by a lot of development, and so we put into place as development occurs, sidewalks had to occur as along the way, and so as you saw developments up and down Main Street or Broadway or Cullen or anything like that, you saw the sidewalks going in, and there was a gap. You know, it was a sidewalk. They were required to put the sidewalk in front of their property, and so there might be a gap. And so the decision and the policy at that time was development would provide that along the way. So that's why we have some of the gaps that we have. And so now we want to come back in and address some of those gaps and make it safer for people to walk around.
Yes.
In addition to it, every time we've upgraded one of our roadways or gone from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, or like McCard Road, recently built, Magnolia, somewhat recently built, and those types of things. Bailey is another one.
Right.
You will see not only the 4-lane boulevard, but you'll see a shared use path on one side, 10 foot, so you can ride a bike and you could also walk or jog, and then the other side will have usually a normal 5 or 6 foot sidewalk. And so we've invested in those roadways to make sure that we had that infrastructure complete from day one. So again, this all takes time and money. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of money, and we have to be real diligent as we spend those dollars and spend it wisely, that we don't. And again, I'm a big stickler. I want to make sure that when we go in, especially in a neighborhood, and you'll see some of our neighborhoods where we'll come in and do drainage, but we're going to go in at the same time, and we're going to replace water and sewer lines, and we're going to fix the streets at the same time. Why not come in? If we're going to tear things up, let's fix it all at the same time, as opposed to coming in and just fixing drainage, and then 2, 3, 4 years later we come in and fix water and sewer lines.
Right.
Go in and make it inconvenient for the people who live there once.
Exactly.
You know, one time. And we have a project that's just started, engineering, in fact, right behind City Hall in the Shady Crest area and Creekside area, Creekview area, excuse me, right here by Gringos and Broadway as a marker. And same thing, we're going to be coming in and addressing some of their drainage issues, but they're also getting brand new water and sewer lines, and their streets will be completely redone, you know, as a result of it. So much better infrastructure for the 20 or 30 years to come, you know, behind it. So with that, why don't we go to some of these questions, and we'll start with some of the questions that were preloaded to us. I think we put this out a couple of 2 or 3 days ago, and we had some questions. So you know, Victor, I'll handle this first one, and then we'll kind of get into some of the others as we go down. Why is Pearland City water so expensive? That's the question. And the comment was, no one has been able to provide, you know, a decent answer. And so I'll just be very matter of frank that we've been in the middle of about a little over $500 million. That's somewhere in the neighborhood of $550 million in capital improvements in our water and sewer system. Specifically, we're just now completing an expansion of our John Holgrove Environmental Center wastewater treatment plant, which was about $75 million. We're in the final stages of getting TCEQ approval of a new surface water treatment plant, 10 million gallons a day. Surface water treatment plant on the west end of our community. That's a $175 million project. And then we just started a new project. So those two alone, that's $250 million and you pay for that through your rates. That is a business enterprise within the city. There is no property tax in that. There's no other, you know, there could be grants if we receive them and those types of things, but that is 100% supported by ratepayers. Yes. And so now we're on to a new wastewater treatment plant project. It's a very expensive and a very large project. We have a wastewater treatment plant, Longwood plant. It's right off of Dixie Farm Road in Clear Creek. That plant is 60 years old. Right. It is gone through its useful life. It cost us several $1 million a year just to keep it operational. It is in the floodway. So environmentally, responsible owner of that plant. Anytime we've had major floodways or floods, that plant is flooding, and you can imagine that's raw sewage in the creek.
Yeah.
And so we're under notice by the TCEQ as well as the EPA to do something about that. And so because of our large capital program, we're now doing that. Right. So we're going to be collapsing that plant, putting in a large lift station, coming back to Berry Rose. So if you're at Berry Rose and Pearland Parkway, you see all the construction going on there. That plant is under construction now to be expanded to handle all that. So we're going to go from those 2 plants to 1. So long term, that will be better on our maintenance and operational cost moving forward. So, and again, all of that goes into our cost of water. But I will say this, many cities are experiencing water shortages.
They are.
Capacity issues. They have failed to address long term their water capacities. Yeah. And one of the things that we've done as a city even 30 years ago was obtaining rights to water. So every city in the greater Houston area, as we continue to grow, are going to be facing large capital expenses, and there's only one way they pay for that, and that's through water rates. So if you're on a business side, we do have some of the highest rates in the Houston area. If you're on the household side, we're not the highest. So it may not be the good answer or the right answer or the decent answer that the constituent asked for here, but that's the truth of why our water rates are what they are. And council is very aware and cognizant of it. We don't run that system as a profit. We literally thread a needle to run it as bare bones as possible and still deliver the services that we have to under the rules and regulations that the state forces us to. So,
correct.
What's the next question, Victor?
Yeah. So why does the city not force the new developments to install right turn lanes when they are on corners? So we do when we carry out a traffic impact assessment, which we require of all new developments, and if that merits it, then we do indeed.
Yeah, so we force, that's the way the question was worded. Yep. We do force new developments to install exactly what their traffic impact analysis warrants and requires them to do. Some require right turn lanes, some do not. Not all of them do. And by Texas law, we can't force them to do something that's not engineered or warranted through the study.
Precisely.
And there are certain requirements that those go through. I will give you an example. So right here by City Hall, the new charter school that a lot of people have talked about, there's a right turn lane that's being installed as we speak. And people say, well, why wasn't it installed before they opened? We wanted to, they wanted to. But if anybody has a friend at TxDOT or CenterPoint, because the CenterPoint poles had to be moved and TxDOT had to approve it because it ties into Broadway, which is an FM road, and it literally took well over a year to get their approvals to do that. So we have to work with those other agencies at the same time, that we're wanting this to happen. And so it didn't make sense to hold up the school in their start. For a whole nother year waiting for that, but it's under construction now and will help relieve some of the school traffic that's been generated there.
And actually that's another really important point, Mayor, that some of these things are not entirely within our control. We're relying on agencies like TxDOT, like the county, and we're in 3 counties.
Correct.
So we have the relationships with all of them. So that just makes it a little bit more complicated, but it's a focus that we'll continue to have.
Right. So I'll address the next one. It was actually addressed to me. Why has Mayor Cole stated that intuitive intersection traffic sensors require technology that costs money years ago? Okay. But he isn't against cameras at intersections that also require technology and money. Let me just be matter of fact, I've never said that I'm against traffic sensors requiring technology. I'm just simply stating the fact that it costs money and lots of money to do this install. You got to have the right fiber. You do. You got to have the right cable. All of those kind of things in the infrastructure there. And so you're not going to go out and just do the whole city at one time. You've got to systematically do that. And so I am in favor of technology, in our intersections. I am in favor of technology and sensors to flow traffic better. It is something that we have to always work on. They do break, they do malfunction, and so we have to provide maintenance. But I'll go to some additional. Why does Pearland Parkway in both directions not have priority traffic in both directions? I'm not sure. It goes to the timing. We're actually the Pearland Parkway and Broadway, actually. So the southbound has the 2 turn lanes
Yes.
onto Broadway.
Yeah.
The northbound there, we issued engineering to do the same thing on the south side as we move north. So that's in engineering right now. Certainly something we need to look at is always our traffic signaling and our traffic timing.
Right.
It's not always exactly precise, but that is, where we are. Why does Pearland Hint make Houston pay for any expansion required for what was built at Riverstone? I'm not sure at Riverstone. Houston is outside our city limits, and
Right.
we are widening everything within our city limits. So I don't know that we could require Houston to do capital improvement projects outside their city and in Pearland. But the good news is we got Harris County, because
Right.
that is a portion of Harris County, to help pay for, $4.8, $4.9 million towards that project, which was probably 45% of that project.
Yes, would be.
So we are getting others in order to do that. So let's move on down. I think we actually, streetlights.
Streetlights,
Number
yes.
4, yeah.
Right.
You want to read that one, Victor?
Yeah, so would like to understand the rationale behind why so many sections of major thoroughfares have no streetlights. Especially of concern is the long stretch of McCard on the west side of Pearland. I didn't know it was very long, that stretch, Mayor.
Yeah, I saw this question. I was actually in not Shadow Creek. I was in a Country Place last night for an event and drove McCard home. And there's only one small section of McCard
Right.
that does not have streetlights. It's from Cullen to about Stone Road,
Right.
which is a handful of blocks, 2, maybe 3 blocks, that does not have streetlights. The rest of McCard, all the way over to the traffic circle, has streetlights.
But
that
the
one,
intention is to
yeah,
push it
the intention is, and so we have to work with CenterPoint on our streetlight installs and those types of things. And as they were installing streetlights along McCard, they found on the western end that they had some issues with their own install and electrical lines.
Right.
I don't know what the holdup is now. Obviously, we had Beryl. We've got some other things that have diverted some attention with CenterPoint, but I do know they halted the additional poles there in order to address their issues on their own electrical lines, and then install would come. But I will say, any of our new major streets that we have built, you see street lights there.
Yes.
Some of the older streets, Broadway is not well lit, and that was, when it was built, that was the policy at the time. And so McCard Road or Shadow Creek Parkway, west of 288, same thing when it was built, probably now 20 years ago. Widened to where it is. The policy was not to install, the lights. We do have a program and a project next to come back and install some street lights. A lot of your old county roads, north and south and around, are very underlit.
Right.
But as we get to some of those streets and widen and upgrade, then part of that plan is upgrading our street lights.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good job.
All right. All good questions. I'll address number 5. With so many local businesses failing in Pearland, why are we allowing so many chains to open? Well, in the state of Texas, I don't know if it's allowed by right through a zoning category. We can't tell a chain go away.
We can't.
We don't have the ability or the authority to say you can come in and you can't.
Right.
If they're relocating into a strip center that's already there, or on property that's already zoned a certain way for a restaurant, or those types of things. But I will say that this is according to EDC and our chamber, that 83% of our businesses in town are locally owned. So we do put a lot of emphasis behind our local restaurants and those types of things. The rest of that question, why doesn't the city try to protect what little culture we have? We do. You may not see it, but we do. We partner with our Visit Pearland and organizations like that to help highlight.
Right.
For example, I think November is Restaurant Month.
Correct.
And those restaurants, you know, are really focused on our locally owned restaurants.
Right.
I don't know the writer of the question if they are aware of that, and hopefully they support November.
Right.
You can actually go and get a passport and go get it, you know,
Stamped at the various
stamped at all the different
participants, that's
restaurants
right. Yep.
and those types of things.
Yes.
And then, but I do want to highlight Old Town. I want you to talk a little bit about Old
Right,
Town.
right.
We've got an Old Town revitalization plan. We're in the early stages of the planning of that and the stakeholder groups. And that is exactly what this question is asking for.
Right.
It is designed to help protect and foster and promote the older area of town, the very old town site.
Right.
And so we hope that each one of you, there's a QR code on your screen right now. Click on that QR code and go there, and you can take the survey of what you would like to see.
Yeah.
And we want that small town and hometown feel. So why don't you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that process and that project?
Yeah, I'm very enthused by it. To me, Old Town is the heart of the community, and I think everybody would recognise that over years, the city has kind of been focusing on other things elsewhere, and we've, I think, done a good job when you think of the developments over at Shadow Creek. I think the time is now to go back to the heart of the community and invest in it, and that's what this is about. And I know 20 plus years ago there was some work done on this. Some of us have looked at that and I thought, hey, you know what? We didn't do a great job then because none of it came to life. We want to make this real for people now, and that's going to take investment. So that's why we need the EDC on board, because I would expect us to leverage those sales tax dollars again. I would see us, the city, investing heavily in that area, and I think it merits it because we need to remember where we come from. I come from a place, you know, where history, cultural tradition is important, and it's important here to people in Pearland and people in Texas, and I think it's right that we invest in it, Mayor. I'm
Absolutely.
very enthused by this.
Absolutely, very good, very good. Read question 6 there.
So,
Victor.
when is the widening of Hughes Road set to start?
It's actually a great question. I see on the screen Taylor Brink. Taylor, great question. It is actually out for bid as we speak. So great timing. It has been way too long in the making. And again, remember Victor said a minute ago, we have to work with other agencies. This project is being funded through the Transportation Improvement Plan at HGAC. So 80% of the funding is coming from outside resources, not paying local. And as a result of that, we have to abide by their rules and their regulations and their process. So working with TxDOT and the federal government in order to bring that across the finish line is where we've been. It's the reason why it's been delayed so much. But the good news is it's out for bid. I was told in a meeting yesterday that it looks like we will be bringing that to council in October for award, assuming we have the good bids and we get that awarded. Expect it to start construction usually 60 or 90 days after the award, because once we do, just a little bit about process, we'll educate here. Once we award it, then the contractor has to go out. We have to finalize the contract, and we have to finalize bonding.
Right.
You know, the performance bonds and all those kind of things that go into place to make sure that that project is ready to go and get moving. So I would expect right at the end of the year, January-ish, you should see some activity out there on the roadway. And I'll just say to the residents out there again, it's construction. You know, we've got to get through it, and it'll take probably 18 months to get it built. And then once it's done, it'll be, you know, 4-lane, nice, you know, divided road out there, much better to traverse. And so it's coming. Same type of question. I'll give you a little insight. We're at about 90% design. We're getting real close to where we finalizing the right-of-way acquisition on McKiowa. So that's another project that is in the queue. Hopefully we will be out for bid here in about a year as we complete all of that up. and get that section, moving forward from Broadway all the way to the Beltway.
And it needs it badly, Mayor, I have to say.
Very bad, very bad. And we don't control what happens in Houston and that portion of it, but the city of Houston folks know and are understanding how that part is as well. So next question up is across from Independence Park is a corner of land for sale that is right on the creek and another plot right at the stop sign. Developers have tried to clear the trees and turn it into another gas station, but no one wants that land developed. No one. Okay. So the permits never get issued. Why doesn't the city of Pearland purchase it and leave it as a natural green space as an extension of Independence Park? We need more natural sanctuaries with so many trees being cut down for housing development. It's a great question, and it's actually something that council is very well aware of.
Right.
There is some interest on council to purchasing some, I would call it natural areas in that particular area. I think you will see over time some development there. We turned down the gas station.
Yes, it did. Yep.
By right, they could go in and build retail or a restaurant or something like that on that corner. We couldn't stop it. And so there is a development on the other side of Pearland Parkway from there that is actually in permitting.
Right.
So you're going to see a small stretch in there of those trees, come down and some development along there. But and I don't know the person who wrote this out, but I'd like to get word back to them because I'd like to challenge the person who wrote this, because a lot of people who want that, I'm going to put them to work a little bit. So Kathleen, I'm going to ask you, I think it's a great question. This is something that I want to do.
Right.
This is a legacy opportunity for our city.
Right.
To have this type of
remember,
open space
it's in
and green
the Parks
space.
Master Plan.
It is in the Parks Master Plan
Perfectly located.
to create this.
Yep.
But I'm going to ask Kathleen. Kathleen, I'd love to see you go out and get a petition of residents and bring that forward. Go get a petition together. I'd love to see that at council. Because that tells us it's not just one or two people in the community asking for this, and it's not just a council member or two or myself.
Yes.
But it's our community that's wanting this. Now keep in mind, to buy that tract,
How much?
it's probably $5 million
Okay.
to buy that tract. Now, and again, so you're talking about spending $5 million, and it's not a road improvement, it's not that type of an improvement. But an open space is an improvement to our community.
Of course it is.
Okay,
Yes.
and so I would challenge Kathleen. I'd love to, over the next month, put together a petition, and I'd love to see that presented in front of council. That tells us that the community is on board with that, and we'd like to see that. And so we would like to see something like that as well. There is some discussion behind the scenes with the owners. What would it take? And that type of thing, and what could something look like in there, especially with the creek.
Right, and the property owned by the ISD on the other side.
Right.
You just see naturally, pardon the pun, that could develop as a really nice part of the extension to Independence.
Right, and so it is part of our as Victor said, it's part of our Parks Master Plan, and it is something we would like to see come to fruition. So, but I'd like to see some of our citizens step up and bring that to us as well, because it's not just us pushing it.
No, and it's their money.
It is their money, and it's the citizens coming in saying we would like to see that. So great question, Kathleen, and I appreciate you bringing that forward. Victor, number 8 there.
Yes, why are there so many invasive Bradford pear trees that don't produce fruit planted in medians, especially around the old town site? Why not plant fruit-bearing pear trees?
At first,
I've had pear trees, Mayor. They make a hell of a mess on the ground when the fruit falls and you don't pick it up. Just saying.
So I think again, Kathleen, is a great question, and I think one of the things we can do better as a city maybe is in select places have some fruit-bearing pear trees in our parks, having some places like that. And
maybe
even have it
in the old town with
maybe in the old town site study and some areas in there that we can do a better job of doing some of that. If we're talking about the invasive Bradford pear trees that we see on Broadway well, specifically the corner of Pearland Parkway and Broadway, if those were fruit bearing, in addition to the bird mess that we see, we would have that fruit all over the place.
right.
And you're just talking about the cost of maintenance and maintaining it. So I think in our roadways and those types of things, no, but I think we could do a better job and be selective as to where we could have some fruit-bearing pear trees.
Yes.
I would love to see that. I think it's a great suggestion. I'm not going to ask you to do a petition on that one, but I think it's a great question and one that I'd like to see more pear trees with fruit.
With fruit on it.
You know,
No,
in our
okay.
community. Yeah. Next up.
So my question is, why does FM 518, Pearland Parkway, and so many other areas around parks and schools either have no sidewalks or incomplete sidewalks to nowhere? Kind of back to what we talked about
Right.
earlier, Mayor.
Yeah.
Over 30 years, there wasn't maybe as much thought given back then to these things now, and that's what we're trying to fix right now.
Right. Yeah. So watch over the next 3 to 4 years as the voter-approved projects are rolling through. Incidentally, as we do the sidewalk repair and gaps
Right.
in our community, we have it's going to be addressed in zones across our city. So it's not like we're going to have a crew just bouncing all over the city. They're going to concentrate in a zone,
Right.
and then they'll move from zone to zone.
zone, yes.
Okay, that way we use those assets wisely and efficiently. We'll come into an area and we'll do what they have put the analysis together for.
Right.
And then the hope, we spend about $1 million a year, somewhere in there on sidewalk repair. And so the hope is after spending the $15 million that the voters approved, thankfully that was approved, then the $1 million a year is enough to keep up with where we're going.
Right.
We were just getting so far behind, we needed to boost it and get there. So more to come as we do that.
Real quick, Mayor, I just want to address it before we might lose her. Kathleen's in the stream.
Yep.
She just had that bottom question there.
Okay. Oh, let me see. I'm here. I'm happy to get the petition going. Can you have some guidance to start regarding the rules pertaining to petition signature? On something like this, Kathleen, there's no specific rules. I would prefer that obviously the signatures be city residents. If we had a petition for an alcohol thing or a certain initiative to get it on a ballot or something like that, those require a certain number of petition signers. Those require certain things. This is one, we just want to hear feedback and a petition from residents saying, we would love to see something like this because again, we don't have a lot of people that come to the podium and say something like this. And so it would be good for the council and myself and staff, if we're going to go down the path of trying to acquire some or all of that land, that we know we have citizens behind us saying, let's go do this. So I appreciate you being here this morning and participating on that. Next up, why don't we have a pear festival or pear or fruit festival? Can we get some pear planted around City Hall at least? Right. So same kind of question there on the pear trees, and I think that's a great question. On the pear festival, I think a great question there. We have a long-term plan of having a large event in Pearland, and we've talked about maybe calling it the Pear Festival or something like that. So these types of things require tax money initially. They can be offsetting, but it takes staff time and initiative to do that. We've talked about with our Visit Pearland, which is formerly the Convention and Visitors Bureau, along with our Parks Department and some of the things that we can do about creating a festival over a weekend type of thing, and more to come. It's not something that, it is part of our strategic priorities and our strategic plan from the council, but it is not one that it's not going to be an overnight thing, but we want to put a start to something like that and then grow it. Into a large festival highlighting our city and highlighting who we are as a community.
Right, and there are opportunities there to leverage other monies like the hotel occupancy taxes there to that. But again, that's one I would kind of throw back to the person. Great idea. Encourage you to give it more thought, and then when you have maybe got a few of you together and done that, to come back to us with some proposals. Happy to pursue that, Mayor.
It was interesting. We had a festival a few years back, international festival, and it was well attended, but it didn't have a home. It didn't have a place.
Right.
And that was part of the problem. That's really part of the problem if we do a large pear festival. Is that, I mean, we could start something at Independence Park. Independence Park Phase 2 is about to go under construction here in another year and a half or so. And so one thing, I don't want to start something like that and then have to start, stop, start, stop. But I will say, we have an asset that's just outside of our city, that's in our ETJ, that's in Harris County. Okay. I just went blank. Tom Bass Park.
Right.
Just off the corner. There's 500 acres up there, large pavilion, working relationship with Commissioner Rodney Ellis in Harris County. We have talked about how do we grow something and start small, maybe at Independence Park, and then grow it, and then ultimately move it to something like that, and allow it to grow and really be a regional draw. Not just from our community, but from the region. And so that's just to put a little bit of put a little bit out there as to some of our vision. We've talked a little bit about that.
Good one. Let me do this next one, Mayor, because it's to you.
Yeah.
So what do you feel is your biggest accomplishment since taking office?
Well, that's a great question. I don't really go around and think of one thing or the other, but I will say. When I came back into office, when I ran for office, let me start there, I kind of noticed that as we would move through the budget process each and every year, it always started in February with an early input budget session where staff would come in with white papers and literally stacks of paper for council, and it was staff led and it was staff directed, and council just took the feedback and took it, and then we ended up with a budget later, and there was always a lot of consternation around the budget. It really wasn't the council-led budget. It was staff-led. And so when I came into office, we reversed that and put council driving
in the driving seat?
In the driver's seat. And so every February, in fact, this year it's actually the last Saturday in January, but January, February of every year, we have a strategic planning retreat by the council. We do it here in town. We usually find one of our large conference rooms or training area that here in the city, and we bring the council and our upper staff. We don't bring all of our staff in. We bring obviously the city manager's office and a handful of our directors into that meeting, and it starts, and we bring in a facilitator, so kind of outside eyes and ears to help us direct through that. It gets very candid in the discussion.
I went to my first one this year, Mayor, and it was really refreshing to see the
discussion. And so when you're moving a city and you're moving in a direction, none of this happens overnight. None of it happens real fast, but we have to continue moving in a direction. And so one of the things that we've done, and I would say one of the biggest accomplishments, is really taking our budget document and really drilling it down to what we're supposed to be focused on. The core issues and the core functions of a city: public safety, police and fire, public works, streets, drainage, water and sewer, and then we have our parks. And we have people in our community that wish we didn't have parks. I want people on this that to know and understand, while we have people who want us to buy the corner over there, we also have people that don't think we should be spending tax money on any parks. We hear that, and so I want to make sure that you understand our job is to listen to 135,000 people, and we have to come up with a consensus of what's best for our community.
They don't all like the same thing, Mayor?
Well, yeah, and so that means we hear a lot of voices, right? And so we have to listen to all of that, and then come together as a member of 7 council members and myself, and then say, what's best for our community, and how do we do that? How do we do that and stretch the tax dollars as far as they can, making sure that we're efficient with the tax dollars? I'll say this: when I ran for this position, I never stated that I was going to cut taxes and I was going to cut this and cut that and do this and do that. What I did say is we were going to try to be as efficient and as prudent as possible with the tax money, because again, it's your money.
Right.
It's not
our money.
It's not the city's money. It's the taxpayers' money. And so we want to be diligent with it, which means some of these projects take years to accomplish. When we start talking about traffic signals and those types of things, we could invest millions and millions of dollars in that, And so we have to be judicious in how we do that. So we wanted to restructure our budget and our process and our thinking, putting the council, who's a representative by the people,
Right.
in the driver's seat of what do we want to see in our budget. And then once we have that and we have our strategic plan, we vote on that, we approve it.
Yep.
About a month or 6 weeks later. And then that drives the budget document that we see, in August and September.
Right.
And so we really put the council back in that driver's seat. And I would say that, to me, is the biggest accomplishment of my term here.
Okay.
I will say, and I'll follow it up with a question that I get asked a lot. What do people ask me, what would you like to see some of your legacy be, and what would you like to accomplish long term?
Right.
And so, we've been a fast growth city for a couple of decades now, and our growth rate is slowing, number of actual people moving here, because we're running out of large tracts of lands for residential. And at the same time, new development, it's easy, right? It's brand new infrastructure, brand new streets, brand new water and sewer, drainage, and all those kind of things. What ends up suffering is older areas of town. And so we are going to wake up one day and all of our city is older infrastructure.
That's right.
So we need to make sure that we are properly investing back into older infrastructure, older neighborhoods,
Yes.
to make sure that literally infrastructure that was built 50 and 60 years ago, nowhere near the criteria today. We need to make sure that that infrastructure, I call it the bones,
Yeah.
the bones of the neighborhood, is as solid moving forward as it was the day it was built. And so that takes time, takes a
And
lot of money.
Right.
And you'll see future bond programs and stuff where we'll go in. Classic example, we just completed Willowcrest subdivision, about 50 years old. We just completed under a drainage project, increasing their drainage. They had 24-inch pipes. That's the reason why they were flooding all the time.
Wow.
All they had was 24-inch pipes.
Okay, right.
So now they've got detention. Now they have 36 to 48-inch pipes.
Yes.
They have brand new streets, brand new water and sewer, as well as brand new drainage. Barrel came through, dumped 13 inches of water on us in about 8 or 9 hours. No flooding in that neighborhood. Okay, so it worked, right? That's an older neighborhood. We've done that systematically with a few others over time. We need to do that with more. And so I will say this to the people, and we're getting close to our hour, and we're gonna go and see if we can catch any online questions real quick. But Shadow Creek Ranch, everybody says it's brand new. The oldest sections of Shadow Creek Ranch are now 22 and 23 years old.
Right.
So think about that. 20 years from now, they'll be like some of these older neighborhoods with infrastructure. Hey, so Joe, see if we can get to a couple questions. We got about 6 or 8 minutes left, and let's get to some of these real quick.
Sure thing. We'll start with the top here with Hal. He came in with 2 questions there towards the top.
What traffic congestion criteria is needed to warrant putting in overpasses on some of busier intersections? He highlights Broadway. I'm not sure that you're going to see. I'm not sure that you're ever going to see an overpass at Broadway. The span to do that would take out all of those corners, all of that business up and down there. You have to span from the railroad tracks all the way across 35 in order to do that. You're not going to be able to go up and down and be down at grade. We've looked at that over the decades, and we've determined that that's probably not going to be the best way to do that. We do have a study that's going on how do we address the Old Town site mobility.
Right.
So it's called a one-way pair option. So Broadway
The
would
pun's
be
intentional on that one,
yeah,
I think, Mayor. Right.
exactly. It would be one way going east to west on Broadway, and would be one way going east on Walnut.
Right.
So we're studying that, and it may give us the opportunity to do something a little bit different in the on the Old Town side. As we do the study, how does this going to look? Give us more of a downtown feel there, as well as it doesn't require expanding Broadway. It would require expanding Walnut,
yeah.
but from a capital expenditure standpoint, it would be less expensive
It would.
to do. We could create on-street parking and those types of things. So it is a discussion we're having. We're having it with the Old Town site. We're having it with the businesses in the Old Town and the residents there. So we want to make sure that we're being judicious in how we do that. Let's see, a lot of people on the phone while driving. You are 100%
You're absolutely
correct.
right. Stop it, people.
Yeah. Yeah, it concerns me that so many people are literally driving down the road doing this.
So frustrating.
And distracted driving is equal to drunk driving.
Right.
People weaving all over the road, and frankly it disturbs me. I don't know how many accidents end up with people on their phone, but it's quite a few.
Right.
Let's see. Lewis, neighborhoods with narrow streets have 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, which is required, which is quite
But
excessive for it to be safe. Can something be done to reduce to 20 miles per hour, like Twin Woods? Victor, I believe so. State law, number one, most neighborhoods are at 30.
30.
What's the requirement to go? To go lower than that. I think there's some state law involved in this, Lewis. And so without knowing it directly off the top of my head, there's some state law. You can't go below a certain amount unless there's a park or a school.
There's criteria attached, Mayor.
Right.
And again, I don't want to speak off the top of my head. I don't know the detail, but it's a good question.
It's a great question,
Yeah,
Lewis. I
it
would
is.
ask you reach out on the website.
Right.
I have an email address there. Please go to our website, click on my page, go to my email, send me an email specifically on that, and we'll get a good answer
Yeah, we
to
will.
you on that. I don't want
It's
to.
a good question.
I don't want to shoot off the cuff with that, but I do know there's some state law requirements around it.
Right.
And so, but great question. We want our neighborhoods to be safe.
Yes.
And quite frankly, most of the people who are driving, even over 30, live in that neighborhood. It's not cut through.
Right.
It's people living in your neighborhood. So that just is a respect thing
It
for
is.
me.
Agreed.
So Joe, do we have any other questions there?
Yeah, we got a few more here.
'Kay.
Put them up.
The next one would be from Delana, I believe. Let's pull that up here. Third one. Oh, she just popped up right there. Streetlights on main and telephone.
I guess she's probably talking about replacements because there are streetlights up and down there. That's actually part of a city contract that we have to do in that particular area. And so I'll make sure that we note that and get back. I know we did a lot of streetlight replacements about 2 years ago. So let me take a look at that and we'll get that addressed. We need, Miss Mary Franco, we need more entertainment venues and places for teens and adults to enjoy. I wouldn't agree with you more.
Right.
Mary, we need more of that. That is a market thing and that is a private investment thing. So we do know places like Main Event and others have talked about coming in here.
Right.
But
we do recognize it in our
Right.
the Paradigm Prosperity Plan.
Correct.
Says explicitly we need
Yeah.
more of this. So, yeah.
But that's not something that we and even our EDC is really tasked with going and
we can't go and
attracting.
build them.
We don't
But-
go and build them, and we
But
don't go
We
do
can't
them.
encourage people to do that.
Yeah, yeah. So, but anyway, great question, and I couldn't agree with you more. Let's see, Patrice, does the city have any programs to help very old seniors with fence repair? That's a good question. Is that something we can ask Joel?
I was just going to say that exactly. Let's see if there's anything through CDBG
So we have,
we could.
yeah, we have a
use.
grants coordinator and CDBG, which is
That's a good question.
yeah, some of our block grant funding that comes through the federal
Yeah.
government. Great question. So Patrice, can you do me a favor? We can write this down here, but if you could send me an email on that directly, that would be great, and we can get that directed to the proper people and get a good answer for you.
Right.
Okay.
Eric has got a good one.
Eric, is anyone trying to turn the old town site into a town square, like in Georgetown or Greene? It would be so cute. Great question, Erica. In fact, Joe, if you could put the graphic back up, we have an old town site study going on right now about how do we redevelop it and repurpose it and revitalize that particular area. And we're in the early stages of our planning for that. Erica, I'd love for you to go and take that survey and share with us your thoughts, what you want to see
Right,
there.
right.
That all is taken very seriously. We have a consultant on board. This will be about a year-long effort to do that. So stay engaged as we have more to come. But a great question. Great question. I think that did it, Joe, and for our questions. And I want to thank everyone for coming on and just joining us this morning.
Yep.
We've been doing this now for quite a few months. It's been a good venue to come and interface and engage with the residents of our community. And we've been alternating between the morning and in the evening. Our next month we'll be doing an evening broadcast. So we're trying to fill that both ways. But I can't thank you enough for being here. I can't thank you enough for allowing me to be the mayor of this city. It is an honor to get up and go to work every day and be a part of this community. We have some of the best people in the world that live here and great employees to help as well. And Victor, I'll give you the last word. What have you enjoyed most about being in Pearland?
So the people, Mayor, you're absolutely right. So welcoming. I love coming to work every day. I love where we live. It is a wonderful place. As I said before to some of our staff, we work for the best city in the best state in the best country in the world.
That's great. Last thing, a week from yesterday is National Night Out. If
Right.
your neighborhood is participating, get out, get to know your neighbors. That's how you can help with the crime rate and those types of things. Get to know your neighbors. Be that small town. Help your neighbor. Neighbor helping neighbor. Neighbor loving on each other.
Right.
And that's how we have a great city. I want to thank you again this morning. Y'all have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next month. Thank you.